Hi guys, Mrs. Rainierson here, back to read some more of The War I Finally Won. Let's see what happens in chapter 24. Let's get started. Chapter 24. Lord Thornton telegraphed that he was coming home for the weekends. We tried hard to make things nice for him. Instead of ducking her share of the housekeeping, Lady Thornton actually mopped the kitchen floor and polished the brass on the fireplace, and she queued for 3 hours to get our bacon ration while Susan stood in a separate queue for fish, standing in line. Lord Thornton arrived in his car to our surprise. I wondered how he'd gotten the gasoline. He brought gifts for all of us. A piece of chocolate for Jamie, a potted plant for the kitchen table, a small bottle of perfume for Lady Thornton, and 4 new bars of smooth, silky scented soap. One for each, Lady Thornton, Susan, Ruth, and me. Shh. To my astonishment, I was actually happier to get nice soap than I would have been chocolate. Soap was on ration, and all we could usually get was war soap, unscented and harsh. It made me itch. I'd gotten used to daily baths and nice soap, living with Susan. Odd when you thought about it. Man hadn't been much for keeping us clean. Ruth stared at her soap as though she were afraid of it. She looked close to tears. I wondered what she was thinking. I didn't understand her at all. Lord Thornton was still scary, very tall in a looming sort of way, but now he spoke to me as though I was someone he knew well, and also as though he'd rather liked me. You look as though you're getting around quite easily, he said. Even better than at Christmas time. I realized he was talking about my foot. I didn't want him talking about my foot. Thank you, I said. Across the room, Ruth looked up, interested. Does it hurt anymore? He asked. Of course not, I said, though it did sometimes. Good, he said. Very good. What happened to your foot? Ruth asked that night as we climbed up the stairs to bed. Nothing, I said. Susan called it a club foot, Ruth said. I know, I said, and closed my bedroom door. Chapter 25. A week later, Maggie came home for half term. I met her at the village station. I can't believe my father brought home a German, she said. What's she like? Not as odd as I thought she'd be, I said. Of course, she might be pretending, trying to trick us into feeling safer. Though the longer I knew Ruth, the more ordinary she seemed. Your mother hates her, I added. Maggie nodded. I'm not surprised. Maggie stood in the middle of our bedroom, her hands on her hips. I stood beside her. The two halves of the room no longer matched. I stripped the frilly coverlet and pillows from my bed and removed the lacy curtain thing that went around the bottom of it. I'd taken the curtain off my side of the window, and I'd thrown my dictionary in with Maggie's books on the shelves, moved my box to my bedside table, and scooted the rug partially under Maggie's bed so it didn't lay on my half of the floor at all. Did my mother do this? Maggie asked. Yes, I said. She shook her head, lips firmly pressed together. I can't believe it. It's not fair. She grabbed the edge of the rug and tugged on it. Help me, she said. This needs to go in the middle. It's for the both of us. It's not, I said. It's yours. That's ridiculous. As if I wouldn't share anything I had with you. She centered the rug on the floor. I thought we had 2 of those coverlets, she said. I know for a fact we had 2 sets of pillows. She flung open the wardrobe door. There, stuffed against the back of the floor, were the extra pillows. Your mother did put them on my bed, I said. I just didn't like them. Maggie looked at the pillows and back at me. Oh, she said. Well, you didn't have to take them. I thought my mother didn't want to let you use them, that's all. No, I said. I felt a little uncomfortable. She wanted to share. She just went ahead and did everything without asking me first. Maggie nodded. I know, she's always like that. She sat down on the edge of her bed. What do you want? I think we should both use the coverlets. That way our beds would match, like we were sisters. Sisters? Maggie scowled. Don't sound so horrified. I've always wanted a sister. Never thought about having a sister. I don't mind the coverlet, I said, if we can get rid of those lace things around the beds. The dust ruffles? Deal. Maggie and I rode out together to the top of our lookout hill. It was lovely to have company on the rides again. I missed you, I said. Maggie nodded. She scanned the sea from side to side the way we always did, checking for spies. I've missed you too, she said. I miss everything. School's wretched in wartime. I give anything to be home. 3 girls have gotten telegrams so far. she continued. There's this long drive from the road leading up to the school. Shh, crazy. And you can see the whole of it from every classroom window. When the telegraph boy turns down the drive, all of us are watching him by the time he gets to the door. We all stand at the windows, not breathing, hoping the message isn't for us. I've seen a messenger bicycling around the village, I said. When Ma'am died, I got a letter, not a telegram. The military sends telegrams, Maggie said. Sometimes they say wounded or missing in action. The 3 that came to our school all said dead. 2 brothers and a father. She paused. We watched the boy bicycling up the drive, and then the head calls someone out of the class, and we all know what's happened. And we're just glad it wasn't us that got called. We don't feel sad as much as relieved. It's horrible. Jonathan wasn't my brother, and I still worried about him. I couldn't imagine having to think about telegrams and Jamie. Getting a telegram here would be just as bad as getting one at school, I said. Maggie turned to me. Her eyes looked dark in her pinched face. That's not true, she said. When we got home, there was a letter waiting for Maggie. I looked at it anxiously, but Maggie's face lit up. It's from my grandmother, she said, from Scotland. Ruth spun around. For one brief moment, her face glowed with joy. Her expression fell so quickly into her usual similitude that I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it. Oh, she said, your grandmother, not mine. She turned and went up the stairs. I heard her lock her bedroom door. Maggie was laughing. My grandmother's got a bunch of evacuees staying with her, she said. A whole dozen boys. She says it's worse than when my father and his brothers were small. Maggie's grandmother in Scotland was Lord Thornton's mother. Maggie had explained it to me. Before the war, Maggie used to visit her every summer and every Christmas. Grandmothers sounded cozy, but so did mothers, and my mother had been dreadful. It had been hard to imagine how my grandmother might have been. Anyhow, Susan had made inquiries. No one knew of any other family for Jamie and me. At dinner time, I asked Ruth, Are you expecting a letter from your grandmother? Ruth shrugged. My mother says there is still hope. She hunched over her plate and wouldn't say anything more. Well, that's kind of sad. She thought it was for her. Chapter 26. Shh. Crazy cat. Can't I stay here? Maggie asked her mother the day before she had to return to school. Susan could teach me like she teaches Ada and Jamie. Of course not, Lady Thornton said. We must not impose. Susan wouldn't mind, Maggie said. You could pay her. Lady Thornton's eyes flashed. I think not. It would be fair. It's out of the question, Lady Thornton said. You're far safer at school. I nearly didn't let you come home for the holiday. Maggie's mouth dropped. That would have been dreadful. Lady Thornton sipped her tea. It would have been prudent, she said. I looked it up. Prudent. Acting with or showing care and thought for the future. I read the definition to Maggie. Oh, please, Maggie said. She just doesn't want me to have to deal with me herself. Her life's easier when I'm gone. She hugged me. Take care of her for me. Me? Take care of your mother? Maggie nodded. Someone should. I can't, I said. I wouldn't know how. Besides, she'd never let me. Also, it was all I could do to take care of myself and Jamie and Susan. I didn't have room in my head to worry about Lady Thornton, too. Just keep an eye on her is what I mean, Maggie said. Write me if you notice anything odd. That might be a lot. I doubted I would notice anything new that was odd about Lady Thornton. Everything about her seemed odd to me. Please, Maggie said. I nodded. I'll try. Without Maggie, the house felt empty again. I missed her snoring in the bed across from mine. I missed having someone to ride with. I told Fred about Ruth. He spat on the ground. We don't want any Germans here, he said. She's just a girl, I said. She's younger than the land girls. The land girls worked on the Thorntons' home farm, in place of workmen who joined the army. Fred didn't like them. She's Jewish, I added. Does that make a difference? Fred looked at me down the side of his nose. After a long pause, he nodded. Some. Ruth loved horses. I didn't think someone who loved horses could do us harm. That's a logical fallacy, Susan said when I told her. Hitler himself could love horses for all we know. Fallacy. A mistaken belief, especially one based on an unsound argument. So Judaism is a fallacy? I brought my dictionary down to the sitting room. Lady Thornton laughed. I didn't know why. Of course not, Susan said. Religious beliefs are complicated. You can't call someone else's religion a mistake. I didn't see why not. I did see that it was complicated. There isn't a right and wrong, Susan said. There are just different ways of thinking. I think Mam's in heaven, Jamie said. He'd been playing on the floor with Bovril. I hadn't thought he was listening. I don't, I said. I think she went to hell. Fred had told me about hell. It was the opposite of heaven, the place where bad people went when they died. In hell, Mam's soul would burn for all eternity, forever. Ada, Susan said, we don't know that. We can never know that. Your mother was clearly incapacitated. What does that mean? Susan considered. The root word comes from capacity, which means being able to hold. Your mother wasn't able to take proper care of you. She didn't have the ability to. Maybe she just didn't want to. Susan said, I don't think anyone wants to be a horrible person. I also think that God shows mercy. What's mercy? I sounded angry. I was. Jamie said, be nicer than you should be. I had no idea how he knew that. Susan nodded. Yes, mercy means that you have the ability and the right to hurt someone or punish them, and you choose not to. Maybe it would be right for God to punish your mother for the way she treated you, but maybe God chooses mercy. I like to hope so. I picked at the dry skin around my fingernails. Susan hated it when I did that. Why? I asked. She sighed. Perhaps because I've always wanted mercy for myself. Or perhaps I just think it would be kinder. Ada, your mother can't hurt you now. She can never hurt you again. She could, though. Mam had never loved me and never would. That would hurt forever. Jamie dropped Bovril into my lap. Everyone loves everyone once they get to heaven, he said. Bovril jumped down. He stalked away, twitching his tail. It would take getting to heaven for Bovril to love me. And that's where we're going to stop today. Bye, guys.